This is a Heart and Hand production.
We are back with episode 3 in our summer series, looking back at some of Rangers' top goals as voted for by the Heart and Hand listeners. Joining me once again is Ali Bain. How are you?
Good, thanks, mate. Pleasure to be back on you.
Yeah, looking forward to this one. And as a regular third wheel on this show, we also have Martyn Ramsay. How are you?
I'm very well, mate. Still living this dream. Finally, we're on Tactics Talk, getting a wee head of steam now.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on again. We're now on episode 3, and we'll be looking at the goal that sealed 9 in a row, which is, of course, Brian Laudrup's at Tannadice in 1997. Ali, what's your memories of this one? As Rangers fans, I think it's ingrained in your memory, but what were you doing at the time? Talk us through it.
I was in the cultural vanguard of South Lanarkshire and Hamilton, listening to the game on the radio with my dad, frantically checking teletext because I couldn't listen to the game anymore. I was so nervous. No idea why, because clearly we were going to win it, but whatever. Just taking in everything that was all-consuming season that this was.
So, Martyn, if the viewers haven't guessed by the screen in front of them, this is May 1997. A certain Brian Laudrup scoring a header, surprisingly, to win 9 in a row at Tannadice. We had fluffed it in the game before, I believe. Was that ever on the cards here, do you think?
Well, I guess it was possible. The thing with 9 in a row, it was pretty much done a few weeks before when we hammered Wraith Rovers, I think 6-0 in Kirkcaldy, which meant that Celtic couldn't get more points, and their goal difference was just never going to happen. The game you speak of was on the Monday, Bank Holiday Monday, at home to Motherwell. Motherwell second bottom, third bottom or something. And Rangers just expected to be given it. We were dreadful, we were sloppy, we were just flat. And we get 2 away games left, right? And I guess you only need a couple of really bad nights. You know, if United beat us 2 or 3-0 and Celtic managed to rack up some goals, you start maybe thinking, because we're away to United then away to Hearts. But Rangers started, first 10 minutes, just a completely different team. Point to prove, job to be done. Laudrup earlier on had taken the ball out of the sky with snow on it, and it just one touch and lost his marker. And Jury and Charlie Miller looked sharp, and it was just clear that this was going to happen. Like Ali, I'm listening to the radio. It was higher maths the next day, so I was not allowed to attend. So it was a nervy night. I don't know what studying I got done right enough, but yeah, it was a weird, strange night.
Yeah, absolutely was. I think the early goal, you could say in any other context, would probably calm the nerves, but I'm not sure it quite did in this one. Ali, we're going to pick this up then with Davy Robertson getting the ball just after the halfway line.
Yeah, so Robertson picking up the ball, and nice little forward pass from Jockey Bjorkland, which was a bit of a rarity that season, because usually his passes probably ended up in a throw-in more often than not. But yeah, Miller picks up the ball, and obviously a sliding tackle from Jim McInally. And I guess it's in this moment here that it sort of turns on a bit of a knife edge here for Dundee United, and that they're a little bit of indecision. Who's picking up who here? Andy McLaren drops back in. McInally goes back into midfield on, really not needed at that point. It's a quick throw-in that gets Miller into this wide left position. And really, it's from here that we enter some sort of parallel universe, right? And it's been spoken a lot about Charlie Miller's left foot crossing ability and Brian Laudrup's qualities in the air. However, in a sort of weird turn of events, both of those things come together, and it's almost an inch perfect cross, right? Which, again, break it down technically, he's whipped it across his body. This shouldn't happen, by the way, right? You shouldn't be able to play across this well with your left foot across your hips, but he does. And it's met with an unbelievable header into the bottom corner. I think the other really interesting one for me, and a bit of context here, was Laudrup being picked up by Eric Pedersen, who I think was about 5'5", but for some weird reason was given a man marking job against Laudrup. And I want to say the first or second game of the season we played against him, and he'd done very well. He'd followed him around the entire field, struggled to give him a kick. So, of course, that's now the tactic from now on, right? We'll just follow Laudrup everywhere he goes, anytime he gets the ball. But in this instance here, the ball in the box is not challenged. Laudrup does well to get in front of his man at the front post. And what a header. I mean, generally watching it now, getting chills, thinking how great a header this was. And again, you add on the layer of context and everything that goes with it. It was obviously an explosion of noise for the Bears behind the goal. Yeah, just a great finish. And yes, we've taken advantage of maybe a little bit of indecision Dundee United's defending there, but what a way to do it.
It is a great finish, Martin. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And it's what a way to win 9 in a row, a Brian Laudrup header to win it. But Charlie Miller, full credit for the quick thinking to make the run. And then that ball into the box. I don't think he's hit a better ball in his life.
No, it was very sharp thinking. It just bobbles up nicely, doesn't it? It just lifts right in his instep. And the cross does the work. I don't think Laudrup has to do too much with his head. Jock Brown called it a classic from Laudrup. I'm not sure about that. I don't remember too many headed goals from him. So in that way, it was a bit strange. He missed a sitter. I mean, he rounded the goalkeeper and then managed to miss, and he got booked. So it was a kind of hat trick of strange, very un-Laudrup moments in that first half. But a fitting way to wrap up this kind of saga, I guess. That was Laudrup's 20th goal this season. It was more than the first 2 seasons combined, and it was needed because Rangers were on their arse. Gough lifts that trophy that night in his blazer. He's injured. Gascoigne come, just back for that game. Alberts is half fit. McCoy and Durant come on for a minute. This team, this kind of band of brothers that Smith had created a few seasons before, they're pretty much at the end. And the injury list was ridiculous that season. And we needed Laudrup fit and firing, and he was. And it was just a very opposite way to wrap up this thing that kind of dominated our thoughts for years, really.
Ali, Bjorkland was involved in this, I guess, nominally. You mentioned him at the start there. He was a bit of a conundrum, wasn't he, in terms of the type of player he was? I remember him being absolutely rapid and a big guy, but not really much else. He's someone who I don't think he would survive now when you need to be such a good player at the with the ball at your feet. But he did genuinely get a nosebleed when he crossed the halfway line, didn't he? It was hilarious to see.
I remember there was the game at Parkhead where Durant's goal, I guess, effectively puts us out of sight. Last Old Firm game of the season. And I remember him dribbling into the Celtic half, genuinely not sure what to do. It was like, this isn't what I do here, fellas, come get it off me, And I think he looked so awkward with the ball. Because again, like you mentioned, in those times, the mid-90s, you could be a very good defender, not be good on the ball. That was allowed almost back then. I think this is also in the days of the marking back, where man marking is a huge part of European football. Obviously, where he'd come from in the continent, he'd go on to play in Spain amazingly and do it there as well. I just think he's an awkward footballer because, again, of his qualities on the ball. But again, if you look at the opposite side of that, what he did for us defensively, again, that game I mentioned, the Old Firm game, I remember him making a sort of last ditch tackle that would save us. So yeah, a really odd footballer for me. I think there's times I almost felt it would be better at left back, sort of out the way a little bit, and allow Robertson to push forward almost like a midfielder at times, given that we basically played that season without a left winger. So it was it was an odd signing for Rangers, that one for sure. But part of this amazing team, it just saw sort of, like Mark said, this band of brothers. Like it didn't really make sense, a lot of this team, right? They're getting in our modern eyes looking at it now. It's a really clunky, awkwardly built team, but they got the job done.
It is. I mean, Martin, you look at Bjorkland, you look at Petric, you look at Craig Moore, not exactly refined with the ball at their feet, I think, at that stage, you could say. Am I doing Bjorkland a disservice? He's had a season in Serie A before that, where he would have been defending a fair bit. A left footer with pace who could defend would probably be well sought after now, but there was just something jittery about him, I guess.
Yeah, I think it is a conundrum. I probably balance. I would tip over to being a fan. His pace managed to recover some situations that perhaps he's maybe more established, better loved, more experienced centre half partners created. He was very good at being able to rectify some issues, especially in Old Firm games. So that was valuable. I liked him. I thought he was fine. But Ali's point about this team in this shape, it really was just guys putting in shifts. Durante in midfield or left wing, and Craig Moore anywhere really that Smith fancied playing him. But again, I go back to the injuries that season. You know, the big Celtic game, the last one that kind of sealed the deal. We had more unfit players on the books than fit players. It had to be this continual cobbling together of an 11 that could do a job. But it was a team in a mission. It was a saga. They just weren't not going to get 9, and I think there was just this huge summer of wave of new players, a new team. That's very difficult to do, as we found, and Smith had to rely again on these legs that just had nothing left in them, and they weren't quite, I don't think, filled with the kind of destiny that they felt that season. But yeah, you wouldn't be able to rhyme off this 96-97 team because I don't think it played 2 matches together.
Yeah, that was certainly something that obviously you remember the game and you watch back the highlights every so often, but when you actually sit down and lay the team bare, you think, wow, there's players there that you can't imagine being a major part of that, but they were. You can look at that as a positive and a negative, I think, Ali, in terms of cobbling together a team. I mean, you look there and you've got 4 centre halves, 2 fullbacks, 2 attacking midfielders, a Laudrup and a Gordon Durie. It's not cohesive at all. Like you said, that can be a positive that they've got the job done and they've went to the well time and time again. But this is 10 years of being the best team in the country. For me, it should and could have been an evolution, and it should have been setting a benchmark for moving into 98, 99, 2000 with a core of players there. But whether it was all eyes focused on 9 and getting that by any means possible, or whether there was a long-term plan, I don't know. Obviously, I wouldn't change it for the world, but there are certain aspects of it that you think it's very difficult to evolve a team over 10 years and still keep it fresh. But I feel like there are bits of it that could have been handled a bit better.
Yeah, well, you've got the 2 pieces, right, of it being the mid-90s where 3-5-2, certainly in the continent, or 3-4-1-2 was the thing to do, right? So weirdly, we were actually trying to keep up with the Joneses a little bit in Europe, even though we were pretty poor at it, right, in terms of our performance in European competition. You've also got to add into that, and we've waxed lyrical so far in this series about Gascoigne and Laudrup, but they are extremely hard players to fit in to a structure, to a team. Like Gascoigne as a central midfielder, I mean, it's almost like when you've got the ball, brilliant. When you don't have it, how do you find a role for him? How do you fit him into defensive shape? In the same way that laterally we'd start to move Laudrup more into a sort of centre forward position, because he's not really a winger and he's not really a second striker and he's not really a number 10. So I think part of it was fitting role players around these two that gave them the ability to express themselves. But at the same time, you've also got players in there like obviously Charlie Miller trying to break into the side, find his own identity, and then obviously you got to work within your means as to your defenders, right? You've got solid defenders there, but none of them are really competent at bringing the ball out. So it's a real hodgepodge, but I think at the top end of it, you've just got two footballers there in Gascoigne and Laudrup that are going to bring the magic, and maybe that's the trade-off that they went for.
And Martin, I think that's where someone like Gordon Durie really comes into their own, where you've got these stars, but then you also need, I mean, workhorse is a bit of a disservice, but these supplementary players, it'd be a support striker now, I guess. Pretty unloved, I think, as far as nobody would have him in their top 5 or top 10 Rangers strikers, but he came in when he was needed, and he did a job, and he gave Laudrup the platform, really, in some games to go on and do what he did.
Yeah, a clever player, Durie, in terms of awareness, in terms of using space and working defenders. The reason he isn't loved is, does he really have that many iconic goals? And by that I mean, did he score against Celtic? No, he didn't. He also had his cup final hat-trick, but we remember that cup final for someone else, incredibly. But he was foil, and he scored a lot of important goals that we just maybe didn't see as important at the time. A lot of away wins that he managed to convert. He put a shift in for Rangers in that those final years. Make no mistake about it. And Advocat kept him around for a reason.
Yeah, that's true. I guess there is always that. That's a sign of his intelligence. I think if someone like Advocat wants to keep you around and make you a part of a revolution, then yeah, absolutely. Okay, that was episode 3 of this series, and that was the goal that won 9 in a row. Charlie Miller's left-footed cross and a Brian Laudrup header, his 20th goal of the season. Ali, thank you for joining me.
Pleasure, mate. Thank you.
And Martin, thank you once again.
Cheers, mate. It's been fun.
And as always, if you enjoyed watching, please get in touch in the comments, and also remember to subscribe to the channel. Thanks again for watching.
That was a Heart and Hand production.